Hello, everyone. Welcome to New Gen Politics. So many of you may have seen this clip of Benjamin Netanyahu this week. It's something absolutely insane. So let's take a look at that real quick.
Free Palestine is just today's version of Heil Hitler.
So obviously, this is crazy. Like this is not true. Saying free Palestine is not the same as saying Heil Hitler. Okay, well then why is he saying it? Well, what he's trying to do is he's trying to equate any level of support for Palestine, be that even like pure neutrality, saying like, maybe we should have two states. Maybe they should get their own state. Maybe I don't like how many people have been killed in this, supposed retaliation. Maybe there's questions as to the real effectiveness of the IDF. Are they actually trying to do what they can to prevent the loss of lives, or are they just doing whatever they want? People are asking legitimate questions like that. Questions that should be asked in every conflict, like, is the military going too far? Are they doing things they're not supposed to? What are your strategic goals? If you're saying it's a retaliation, okay, well, when does that turn from a retaliation to an extermination? That's a question a lot of people are asking is, for, the lives of 1,300 people, you retaliate now, probably close to 200,000 are dead. At what point is it no longer retaliation? So there's all these questions being asked, which doesn't even like indicate a level of support over Israel. You can still be neutral and say, like, it's not our problem. They can work it out. You can like let them do their thing and let them have a two-state solution and whatever. But the problem for Israel is they want one state. They want Israel to control the entire area. They've moved from shifting the goalposts of, it's just a retaliation and we're just trying to root out Hamas, to we need to get rid of these people. And first it started with like, we just need to relocate them. But now, since that's not happening, things continue to escalate. So what Bibi wants to do is he wants to make it seem like if you ask any questions, you have any support, if you just say like, hey, I don't understand why this group of people living on this piece of land somehow still doesn't get to call it their own state. That doesn't, quite resonate with me. I don't quite get it. Apparently you're Heil Hitlering now. You're it's the same as wanting to Holocaust the Jews, as asking questions about, hey, has this whole thing gone too far? And so that's not even like condemning Israel. That's not even like saying like, oh, you want it to stop, or you want, like to kick the Israelis out, or you want, the Palestinians to take their land. You're not even saying anything like that. Nothing like crazy like that. You're just saying, hey, has this gone too far? Why is it that they are not allowed to operate and have their own state? Why is it that Israel keeps, seems to be going overboard, or at least appears to be going overboard? And why can't I ask that question? So Bibi is just trying to drag the whole, throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you have any level of support for Palestine, you're immediately Hitler, which already is a poor argument, especially because people don't really care that much about Hitler anymore. I read an article several years ago now, and then there's been several articles similar to this that basically said the era of post-World War II Jewish sympathy is over. The people who had any relation to the Holocaust, they're all dying out, right? Grandkids, great-grandkids, since there's no personal connection, they don't really care that much. It goes from being like an emotional, like when I was in school, I remember watching, videos on it, and I went to the Holocaust Museum during school, and you like talk to a survivor, and like it's a kind of a personal thing. Now it's like there's just nothing there. It's just a historical fact. And so people don't really care that much. There's not like an emotional thing that's brought up when the Holocaust is mentioned or Hitler's mentioned. In fact, Hitler's like cool now because he's countercultural, and it's cool to be countercultural as a kid. So they don't really care. That's why there's no support for the young people. And then when you come out and make these ridiculous statements, like saying there should be like a two-state, like you could have two states, not even saying like Palestine from like the coast to the sea or whatever, just saying that like, Palestine should have a state, like they should be free to self-govern. Even saying something as simple as that is like, oh, you're supporting Hitler now. And I think it makes it worse. It makes it like, it's like when you give a small piece of constructive criticism to somebody, and then they blow up at you and they like freak out. They're like, how dare you talk to me? How dare you say that to me? You would be like, that's weird. That's weird that you got so incredibly offended by that you had to blow up over like something so small. And then they kind of start to dislike you even more. That seems to be what's happening. Is a lot of people look at this, and then Bibi makes these ridiculous claims, these ridiculous statements. I mean, he's also gone out of his way to like accuse France and England of like supporting terrorism and whatnot. So he's trying to jumble everything together. So if you're like, hey, I don't like women and children dying, even if it's accidental, which there's questions of, is this accidental? But even if it's accidental, I don't like women and children getting blown up. Like no matter how accidental it was, that's still, a problem for me. Saying that is the same as supporting Hamas. And it's like, that's not how that works. Yeah, Hamas is the government. Yeah, they're running the area. That's what makes it so complicated. But at the same time, it's like the victims here that are civilians, it's like they don't have any power to control Hamas. What are the women and children supposed to do? And they're like, oh, we'll just turn over the hostages. It's like, I don't think the women and children have the right to do that. But yet they're suffering the consequences of, Hamas acting as they will, which is bad, obviously. But Israel's saying like, oh, well, because you're related, because you're in the same area, because we're going to glass the whole Gaza Strip, you're going to get caught up in it. But, should have not supported Hamas. It's like, that's why we have rules against, attacking civilians, because it's like they don't have anything to do with this. Like they're not part of the combat. They don't have the ability to remove themselves even from the combat. And then you have people like Charlie Kirk, I saw, where he was saying, well, it's going to happen. Civilians are going to die in urban conflict. And it's like, okay, so we should just like accept that. And at what point some kid, roasted him, and obviously Charlie didn't upload the whole clip, but it was some kid roasted him, was basically like, at what point is it gone too far? Have we gone too far? And Charlie's like, can't even ask that. And it's like, okay, well, that should be asked. So I think Bibi's losing his mind here. He's losing control. He knows he has no support. Trump seems to be not happy with him. That could partially be just because Trump isn't happy with him. And it could also partially be because the vast majority of Americans now think this war has at least gone too far. Even if they support Israel, they're like, well, what's going on here? This seems to be, it's lasting way longer than a retaliation should. It seems to have inflicted many, many more casualties than necessary. I mean, I don't remember them saying that there was 200,000 Hamas fighters. They were saying like there was a couple thousand, it'd be easy, quick in and out, 10-minute adventure. We'll go get them. We'll come back. And then somehow, 20 times that number gets killed. Like that, how does that happen? Especially if they're the most moral army and they're holding back. And I'm more on the fence of like, this is not really our problem. I don't really want to get involved that much. I certainly don't want to go to war with Iran. But we're involved because we're paying Israel to do this. Like we're paying Israel to do whatever they want. We're writing a blank check and saying like, you can do whatever activities you deem necessary as retaliation. So that's why the U.S. is involved. I think we should pull out and not be involved. But then there's also even the level of like, if this has gone on to some sort of ethnic problem, if this has gone to that point, then the U.S. should probably get involved and say like, hey, you need to stop Israel. It's so convoluted. It's hard to tell if we're at that point yet or not. Most people seem to agree that we've certainly gone too far here. So I think Bibi's just doing himself a disservice. I think he's losing support. I think he's grasping at straws, and he's like giving this ultimatum almost, where he's like, if you dare to say anything negative about Israel, you're Hitler. And as we've seen over the last several years, that doesn't work anymore. Calling people Hitler doesn't work anymore. They just don't care. And in fact, they feel like if you're calling them Hitler, that's so egregious. It's like such a 0 to 100, especially if they feel like they're being neutral and just asking questions. They feel offended, and then they're like, okay, well, it feels like you're trying to hide something because you're like immediately saying, if I ask you any questions, I'm Hitler, which they don't seem to care about anymore. So this is not good for Israel. I think Bibi is probably gonna, get kicked out soon, because if he ruins relationships with the U.S., I mean, we're like their golden goose. We'll do whatever they want. So if he burns that bridge with Trump, like that's going to be bad for Israel, because they're not going to get the funding they need or the support. If he continues to condemn other countries as like supporting terrorism, like he's burning bridges there with all the other Western nations, A lot of them have already accused him of committing war crimes, ordering war crimes. Like if Israel wants to regain face on the world stage, they probably are going to have to get rid of Netanyahu. They're going to have to like kick him out of office and like put in somebody new and actually like try to make a deal. And like probably eventually we'll pin everything on him and say we were just following orders and yeah, he was committing war crimes, but you know, it was just him. All of the sins of Israel can be cast onto Netanyahu and he can be sacrificed to the International Criminal Court. I think that's the future we're heading to. I think Bibi knows that. I think that's why he's kind of losing his mind and like lashing out constantly. He keeps trying to get us involved in a war because if he's a wartime, leader, he gets to stay in power. The odds that the walls are closing in on him will reduce if we, say we need stability to fight a war, and so we'll keep Bibi in office. I think he knows that. He keeps trying to drag us into war with Iran. Like he's tried to drag us into literally every Middle Eastern conflict. I don't think Trump's biting on that, which is good. I think the American people are certainly playing a role in that because the American people are on Twitter every day across the board. This is like this is a bipartisan issue of people saying, or nonpartisan issue of people saying, yeah, I don't want to go to war with Iran. Like there's no future where I desire to go to war with any country. And like, I don't see the point of going to war with Iran. And I think Trump is even like preparing to not go to war. One of the things people are saying about like the Golden Dome, if you had heard about that, it's like Trump's project to create a missile defense system around the entirety of North America, mainly the US and Canada, I believe, but it'll cover the whole region. Well, that could either be used for two things. One, we're impenetrable, right? So we become invincible. Well, what do you do when you become invincible? Either you can say, well, it's not our problem. So no one can attack us anyway, so we're just going to chill over here. Or you can say, well, we're invincible, so we can attack whoever they want and they can't, retaliate. People are thinking it's the latter. I think Trump really is like a peace president. He really doesn't want to go to war with Iran. So maybe he's calculating if, we cut off ties with Israel, if Iran's going to get a nuke anyways, if we just insulate ourselves, it's not our problem anymore. That's a possibility. That really is a possibility. Trump might just say, like, we're done. We're out of the Middle East. We're not going to keep bombing Iran. They can try to get a nuclear weapon if they want. It's possible Trump will do that because Israel has nukes and they shouldn't. So Iran might get a nuke and they shouldn't have one either. But, game is game, I guess. And Trump might just say, like, not our problem. We're going to protect ourselves. We don't need to be in the Middle East because we're in the Middle East to prevent them from getting nukes because we don't want them to have nukes because they hate us and they hate us because we're in the Middle East. Like every time I think about this scenario, I think about there's like a clip from Futurama where he's talking about he gets a second job so he can afford coffee so he can stay awake for his second job. Like that's literally our Middle Eastern policy is we're in the Middle East. They hate us because we're in the Middle East, but we're in the Middle East because they hate us and we fear retaliation from them. So that's why we go over there. And it's like a vicious cycle. And so if Trump says we're going to insulate ourselves, we're going to hunker down, we're going to say not our problem. Israel, you can do whatever you want. But we're not going to help you anymore. We're not going to pay for it. I've heard the line where it's like Israel can survive without US aid. And it's like, cool, you should prove that. If you can, go right ahead. They still shouldn't be committing war crimes. That's not advocating for war crimes. But like if they can win a real legitimate war against their neighbors, if they become aggressive, that's fine. They can do that. They have a right to exist if they can defend the land. But there is a level that certainly other countries should say, like, this is too far. Has Israel hit that? Has it not? It seems a lot of countries think they have. It seems a lot of people think they have. And then when you ask questions, if you say, like, prove you are not committing war crimes, like, tell us your side of the story on this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing, and they say, we won't even talk to you, you're Hitler, that's kind of a bad sign. It's probably a sign that they're being very defensive and they're probably doing it. So that's my thoughts on this. I think it's messy. I think this whole conflict is messy. It's not a very clear, like, right and wrong. It's never been. There are situations where things go too far on both sides. And when you can't acknowledge that, when you can't say, like, you can, both sides can be doing something wrong or specific instances are bad. If you can't call out specific things and you say, like, any questioning of any side, no matter what they do, is wrong, no, you're in the wrong. If you can't call out specifically bad actions, if you can't even say begrudgingly, like, we're sorry we had to, kill 200,000 civilians, but this is war, they don't seem sorry about that. They seem to think that's not a problem, or they just label them all as Hamas. All those women and children, they were just Hamas. It's like, okay, that's not, resonating very well with the world stage at the moment. And that's why Bibi's lashing out. So we'll just have to see. I hope this can be resolved peacefully. I think Trump really, really wants it to be resolved peacefully. I think he's sick of the wars. He made promises that he would end them on day one. That was pretty unrealistic. But this has gone on even longer than it should have, because he just doesn't seem to want to cut off the aid to Ukraine and Israel. If he did, it's like war ends because they don't have the money to supply themselves. And then the U.S. can get involved if the other side retaliates, and they can say, like, no, we cut off the aid because we want this to stop. But if you're going to retaliate because they don't have aid, we're going to, make you sit and listen and bring you to the negotiating table. That's happening for all the conflicts. Trump kind of looks a little embarrassed because he hasn't ended any conflicts. And then there's also like the questions of, he brought up all this stuff with genocide of the white South Africans in South Africa, which is definitely happening. And then a lot of people are comparing this to Gaza and saying, like, hey, maybe you should have this conversation with Bibi, not even like accuse him or whatever, or not like condemn him. You could accuse him, not like condemn him immediately, but bring him and say, like, hey, explain to me why there's such a high death toll. Explain to me why all these other countries seem to think you're committing genocide. Explain to me why they feel like their diplomats have been attacked, why they feel like it's not safe for humanitarian aid workers, why humanitarian aid workers were killed. Explain to me these things and make me understand it before I write your next blank check. So that's my thoughts on this. We'll just have to see how it plays out. I hope it de-escalates. It's looking like, because Trump's involved, it probably will start to. But it's hard to tell where it'll go. There's a lot of different possibilities, and a lot is yet to be seen. So if you made it all the way through the video, I appreciate it. If you like the content, like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Thank you for watching.